This is something that I would do differently. What was the initial investment? How can I get some eyes on my brand? Number one thing that went a bit wrong at first, that is going to save you a lot of money. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learned over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And today I thought I'd just do a really chilled repot and chat video and kind of walk you through my experience of starting a houseplant shop. This is totally different to the sort of thing that I usually talk about on my channel, but I've had a few of you ask about it recently, so I thought I would just take you through some of the things that I would have done differently in hindsight, some things that really worked for me. I also just want to say that this video is by no means going to be a what you should and shouldn't do. This is literally just me talking about my personal experience, and I hope it helps to shed some light on things for you if you are potentially thinking of starting a houseplant business. So let's get into it. So just a bit of background, I started my online plant shop, the Junglehaven, back in 2020. I'd never started any kind of business before, so essentially just had to learn as I went. I knew nothing about marketing or business strategies or financy stuff. All I knew was that I loved plants and wanted to try and turn my love of them into a job. I asked you on Instagram some of the questions that you wanted to know the answer to, and I've written them down in what kind of feels like a chronological order, but if there's anything I don't answer that you would like to know the answer to, feel free to drop me a comment down below and I will do my best to help. So I've got a load of planty bits to be cracking on with as I go through everything, and I'm just gonna attempt to multitask, which should be interesting. So I'm gonna start by potting up these Hoyas that are currently just in a bowl of water. I'm probably not gonna talk through what I'm doing planty wise that much. So again, if you've got any questions about anything, feel free to drop me a comment and I will let you know. So the first question is, why and when did you start? So as I said, I started back in 2020, which was during the first lockdown, and I didn't have any intention of starting a plant business. Like, that was honestly, if you told me at the beginning of that year that that's what I would be doing by the end of the year, I would just be like, what, that's ridiculous, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I had no intention of doing it, but obviously everybody was at home, spending a lot of time at home, and I already loved houseplants. Like, I had a lot already, but I really just, as a lot of people did, went a bit crazy with buying more over lockdown because I was at home. I wanted to make the house look lovely, and also just realized how much I found plant care so therapeutic. Like, it was amazing when the kind of lockdown days of binging series, films constantly and drinking endless bottles of wine, when that time had kind of passed, I got into the mindset of I would really love to be doing something creative. I would like to be using this time better than I am already. I had all these productive friends that were kind of doing their yoga classes every morning and then going for runs, and I was just sat on my ass doing absolutely nothing, to be completely honest. And I was like, I want to use this time productively. So yeah, it didn't start as a business idea. I had always made, for the last few years, I'd made my own fertilizers, misting sprays, stuff like that, just for my existing plants, not for anyone else's, just because I like kind of doing that sort of thing. So I started doing that. I started posting them on Instagram. I started this Instagram account that is now the Junglehaven on Instagram, but I can't remember what it was called at first. It was called like Get Planty with Claire, or like My Junglehaven, or something like that. It was called something silly. But I started posting lots of photos of my plants and lots of photos of my products and me making my products, and I connected with some really lovely people on there. Some of them people that I still speak to now. It's been amazing, actually. I'm also just thinking I'm going to tilt this camera down ever so slightly, because last time I tried to do this with two cameras, you couldn't actually see that much of what I was doing. So just in case there's any technical issues. Cool, there we go, that's better. Where was I? Yeah, so connected with some lovely people, and over kind of a couple of months, people started kind of asking if they could have the recipes for the things that I was making, like product wise and stuff like that. And then it just kind of got me thinking, maybe I could sell these things. Maybe it could just kind of be like a little lockdown side hustle, still not thinking about like doing a plant shop or anything. But I got some bottles and jars and stuff like that off Amazon and kind of made my own labels with sticky back plastic, and I started doing that on Facebook Marketplace. And although, I mean, it wasn't bringing in great money, it really wasn't, people were buying it and people were interested, and I was like, oh, okay, if people are interested, then maybe there's something to kind of run with a little bit here. And so that's when I kind of, I mean, I've got one of these minds that when I get an idea in my mind, the whole thing will just kind of start going at a million miles an hour, and I'll just be like, okay, right, Claire, what's next? By this time you're going to be a millionaire, and da 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 da. So I kind of had built this whole world in my head in pretty much the space of a few weeks after starting to do this on Facebook Marketplace. And that is when I started kind of thinking, okay, maybe this could be a proper little shop. And so, yeah, I really changed how I was doing things on Instagram. I started trying to present more as a business. I'll talk about this more as we go on, but I started to kind of take the first steps into what would be marketing, I guess, just kind of make people think that it wasn't just another planty page of me, my house, my plants, my dog, and actually this was something to be taken seriously, something that people would want to buy into, basically. And so I started kind of honing my products that I was making already, because when I was making my fertilizers and all that sort of stuff, I was just kind of throwing anything in that I knew was kind of working for me. I wasn't measuring amounts or anything like that. So I had to really kind of start being a bit more strategic with what I was doing for product consistency and all that sort of stuff. So I started kind of testing things and testing how long they would store for and if they needed to be kept in the fridge and all that kind of stuff. And then I ordered, oh, I've actually got one of the bottles here. I just now use this as just like water spray. But I ordered a load of bottles and jars from this supplier that I found, and oh my God, it was honestly the most the most exciting day. I remember at the house I was living in at the time, me and my ex got back, and we had a skip in our front drive, and they'd left these bottles and jars that had been delivered behind the skip. And I just remember being so excited. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is the start of the big kind of, the big thing, the thing that's going to make my life take off. And yeah, I got inside and I just remember like being like, right, I'm going to make so much product tonight. The shop's going to be open in a week. It was very ambitious. It was very ambitious. But then, of course, when I started thinking about that, I started also thinking, okay, right, how can I make this even better? And that's when I started to think about plants and pots and all that sort of stuff as well. And that's when I really started to kind of go for it. I was like, right, this isn't going to be a small business. Like, I was at first looking at things like Etsy and stuff like that. And I have absolutely nothing against Etsy. I think Etsy is wonderful. I buy so many of my plants on Etsy. But for some reason, I think just in that weird lockdown mindset that I was in, and I think it made everybody a little bit mad. But in my mind, I was like, nope. I was like, I want it to be like patch plants or something like that. If you're not in the UK, you might not know. Patch plants is probably one of the biggest, like the Sill patch plants, big kind of competitive places in the UK. And that was where my mind was at. I was like, I want to be like them. So yeah. So I feel like I'm just going to kind of skim through these questions because I was about to talk about marketing, and one of these questions is about marketing. This is something that I knew absolutely nothing about. Like, I would say I'm quite a visual person. Like, I've always really enjoyed putting together kind of aesthetic, eye-pleasing things, but I didn't really know anything about marketing when I first started, apart from I just wanted to make my pictures I was putting out there look pretty and stuff like that. So as I started to kind of build the idea more and more of my shop, I started kind of thinking, right, how can I grow my audience? How can I get some eyes on my brand? And Instagram, to be honest, I mean, I use social media for pretty much all of it, and I didn't actually pay for much marketing at all. I think I boosted a couple of posts from time to time, but it really wasn't much. Like, most of it I refer to as kind of like manual marketing. But I did a few giveaways, which were a fantastic way at first to just kind of get a few more eyes on my page, as I was kind of being like, my shop is going to open soon. It's going to open in 3 weeks or whatever it was. And that would kind of get people over there, get eyes on that, give me a follow, they get something potentially in return. So I did quite a few giveaways. When I'm trying to remember the order of all this, it feels like such a long time ago, but it wasn't. So when I started thinking about actually selling plants, I was originally just going to propagate plants. Like I had so many cuttings and propagations and seeds and stuff like that on the go. I was like, that would be a great sustainable way to just kind of keep the planty thing going with the products, with the pots. I did not stick to that. I continued to propagate with my shop, but I didn't stick to that. I found, after quite a few attempts, I found a decent supplier. I had probably 3 or 4 suppliers in the time that I was doing things shop-wise. But I found this supplier that was based in Holland, and I ordered... I'm literally skipping over all these questions because I know that someone's asked about investments and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to put my notepad here. There we go. Oh, can I see it? Right, okay. So when and why did you start? How did you market your shop? Okay, let me take things one thing at a time, because otherwise it's going to get very jumbled and I'm going to keep repeating myself. I'm going to really try and just stick to what the question is and not go on too much of a tangent. So how did you market your shop? I've already said Instagram was my number one. It was absolutely brilliant. I've spoken about giveaways. The other thing that I did a few times is I reached out to influencers, people that have influence on the platform, people that have big followings themselves, people that are kind of micro celebrities and like plants. That was obviously a good avenue to go down, and just said to them, hi, if I was to send you a plant and a product, would you give me a shout out on my page? And people did. I did that with, I can think of like 4 off the top of my head, but I have a feeling there was another one, can't remember. But anyway, I remember one girl that I did it with who, she had something like 200,000 followers, and I remember the day that she posted about a plant and a pot that she'd got from me. Again, this was before my shop was open. I gained like 100 followers, and I had loads of people messaging being like, where's the link to your shop? I really want to buy from you. And I was like, oh my god, okay, so if it's as simple as me spending £6 to send something out to this person, then like obviously it's worth doing. And to be honest, at first when you're starting out, I really think that it is, because it just makes people aware of you, because especially during lockdown, but especially now, the world has kind of changed so much. Everything is so incredibly competitive. Like a lot of people have been forced to turn their attention to working for themselves, to starting businesses, to kind of creating other ways of earning income. And it does just mean that there's a lot more people doing it. And although the demand is probably slightly higher, because I feel like the demand for plants is slightly higher at the moment than it was before lockdown, but it is definitely competitive. So yeah, that was another thing that really, really, really worked for me. How did you market your shop? Obviously, it kind of goes without saying, and I should have spoken about this first, things like name, logo. I don't really know why I went with the Junglehaven in the end. As I say, I had some very strange names. I tried out a few different things and I just I wasn't really happy with anything else. And I was like, the Junglehaven just has a nice ring to it. So that is what I went with. Logo wise, I played about with loads of logos. I designed them on Photoshop. I work as one of my day jobs is an editor anyway. So I love all that kind of like photo-y stuff. So that was very useful, to be honest. That was very useful in kind of helping with marketing stuff. But I actually, until the day before, not the day before I opened, that's such a lie, about a week before I opened, I was going to go with a completely different logo. And then I was just like, you can't really read the font that well if it's zoomed out, like on Instagram, on like small labels, on things like that. Sorry, my phone, go away. Yeah, it wasn't as readable. And I was like, I want it to be something that is kind of distinctive, kind of minimal. You can tell what it's about just by looking at it. And that is when I redesigned it and found the Junglehaven logo as it is today. So yes, and then that kind of, I wanted to keep that on all my branding. So at first, again, I didn't invest in by the end of it, because I don't know if any of you have watched my other videos, you'll know that I'm not currently doing my shop anymore. I have spoken about that in another video. I'm not going to get into all the whys of it in this video, so I'll link that video down below if anybody's interested. But when I started, I would literally just kind of print out or write out things like the Junglehaven, stuff like that, print them out, again, sticky back plastic, put them on stuff. I would spend hours and hours and hours cutting out these individual labels because I didn't want to invest any more money than I had to at first, just in case things didn't work, just in case I wasted a load of money. I was also on furlough, so I didn't have a huge amount of money to spend anyway, but it was a lot of effort. It was a lot of effort to kind of get things going in that way, but I really wanted to brand it well at the same time. I think the thing as well to say with marketing is that, and this is something that I kind of learnt and probably took to the extreme a little bit too much. I think it's so important that when somebody looks at your brand, and this goes for whether it's a plant business or whether it's any kind of business, it's kind of recognizably yours. They don't have to kind of scroll through to find out, oh, I wonder what this is about. Like, I wonder who this is. Like, as soon as they see it, they'll be like, ah, Junglehaven, that is so distinctive as yours. And that is what I so wanted to create for my shop when I did it. And again, like, I've actually stopped doing it on Instagram now because it was driving me crazy. But if you scroll back through my old photos, you will see that all of them were very minimal, exact, like all of the same kind of color scheme, all of that sort of stuff. Because again, I really wanted to make sure that anytime I posted, it would pop up and people were like, ah, that's the Junglehaven. So I think in that sense, it is very important. I also tied that all into my website as well. Like, I use the same color schemes on pretty much every social media platform I was active on. Even when I first started YouTube and my shop was open, the color scheme was, I tried to keep it all the same. Again, I've scrapped that now, but it was just about kind of people noticing your brand and seeing that, yeah, we know who this is. We don't have to kind of do too much digging to find out who this is. What I was gonna say, and this is something that I would do differently if I was doing it now, in terms of that aspect of marketing, I do think that it's important, but I really don't think it's the be all and end all. I think the thing for me that it kind of took away from is when I first started my planty Instagram, it was a lot more personal. It was just me, it was my plants, it was my dog, Yoli. It wasn't as formal. And I find nowadays, especially nowadays, I want to connect with brands that I feel are more personal. I want to connect with people. I don't want to be connecting with this. Oh, my light's flashing. Right? I think it stopped. I want to be connecting with people that I feel like a human, like human connection, especially at the moment. It is so important. So if I was to start Junglehaven all over again, I think I would still focus on what I wanted my image to be, probably create a mood board and be like, right, I want to stick within this, but I wouldn't be afraid to break that from time to time. I wouldn't be as fragile with it all, to be completely honest, just because I think it reads. Like, there's some people that are going to love it. Like, I know my target audience was probably a lot of the time interior designers and stuff like that. And actually, they're probably not the people I should have been targeting at all. And I think a lot of those people, not everyone was that, but I think a lot of those people will not have followed my kind of planty journey in the way that it's gone now, because it's very far away from everything I was doing before. But yeah, so I think, I'm running out of room. I don't know where to put these now. I think it is very important, but I don't think it should define you. I think the voice of the brand is not in the pictures. The voice in the brand is in you as the creator of the business, the marketing manager, whatever it is you are. The next question is, what was the initial investment? So I want to just start off by saying I could have done things a lot cheaper. And again, that's another thing I would do differently if I was going back now. I wouldn't rush at 100 miles an hour into things like I did. As I say, originally was just going to be products, and then potentially some plants that I'd propagated, like cuttings and stuff like that. And then I was like, nope, okay, go. I want to turn this into a whole thing, and I want it to happen overnight. And I want, when my shop opens, I want it to be like, bam, right, here we go. So I think I I spent money on my website, and obviously then there's selling fees and all that sort of stuff to take into consideration. There's pretty much no platform apart from Facebook groups and I think Facebook Marketplace that you can actually sell for free. Every website, whether it's Etsy, whether it's Wix, whether it's Shopify, any of those things is always going to take a cut. So there was the initial fees, there was the upgrade on the websites for selling products on there, not taking into account fees. And then of course the stock itself. And when I say stock, I'm not just talking about plants here. I'm talking about, for me, my, like all my bottles, my jars, my topsoil mix bags, all of that sort of stuff was not cheap, because a lot of the time with wholesale, you can't just buy, like, I can't be like, oh, I'll just take 10 bottles of this and 10 bottles of that. No, they will say to you, if you're going to place an order with this and you want it to work out as 50p a bottle, for example, that's not accurate, but like if you wanted to work out as 50p a bottle, you have to buy at least 150 of this bottle, if that makes sense. So there was that. I have got the final calculation here. I'm just trying to take you through everything I spent money on. So there was the bottles, jars, bags, then of course all of the stuff to actually make my products. So before, like, for example, hypothetically, one of the ingredients in one of my products was green tea, and before, when I was making it for myself at home, I would obviously just like grab a green tea bag, I just kind of sprinkle a bit of that in, mix it in, and when I was doing it for my shop, I needed to make sure it was exactly the same and there was enough in stock so that if somebody was to say, I want 10 bags of that, I could be like, okay, cool. So there was all of the ingredients for all of that stuff as well. Then there was boxes and packing material. That is something that totally flew over my head, and for some stupid reason I just didn't even comprehend. Like, I think I thought that boxes would be cheap, and again, they're not the most expensive thing in the world, but it's always going to be cheaper if you buy in bulk. And I did fairly small bulk orders, kind of as small as I possibly could, for my first kind of initial investment in the business. And then after that, once a little bit of money started coming in, I started like kind of putting more into it. I basically didn't pay myself at all, like anything apart from like the bare minimum what I needed to get by for the first 5 months at least. So anyway, I'm dotting around the question. The answer is my initial investment was about £400. And I know that some people can't afford to do that. Like, I know that is a big, like, it's a fairly big number. I mean, some people might put in 10 grand to make a business work. Some people might put in 100. Like, there always, I think, has to be some sort of initial investment, just even in terms of getting yourself online, making sure you're seen, and being able to make sure that you can do things in a way that aren't going to set you back and get you a bad reputation first off, because it's such a delicate time when you're first starting out, because you really want the first thing people hear about your business to be good. And so, oh, I thought I just broke that in half. It's 2 separate cuttings. You obviously want your initial reputation to be fantastic, so that then more and more and more people come to you. So yeah, I went as all out as I possibly could at that time. And as I say, when my money did start coming in from sales, it was less than I thought it was going to be, purely because, again, this is something to bear in mind if you're thinking about it. Going through and working out your finances is, I mean, probably so obvious to most people. It really kind of threw me. I would kind of think, right, okay, I've spent, this box is the equivalent of £2. Like, this big double-walled, triple-walled box is the equivalent of £3. And then I've got plants in there that cost me, let's say, £20, and I'm selling them for 45. And then there's some propagations in there, which essentially are free. And I would think that sounds like it should be a massive, massive profit. And it would amaze me sometimes where if I was to make £10 profit on a sale, I'd be like, that is really good. And sometimes the profit would be like £1, £2. But then also you want to be competitive. You want to be able to compete with all of the hundreds and thousands of other shops that are also out there doing the exact same thing as you, and you want to stand out. So yeah, my earnings, that was my investment, and my earnings were not good for quite a while. Like, the first few months, and I think this is pretty normal when you first start a business, your earnings are going to be a bit bad, because you want to kind of pour your money back into your business and make sure that it carries on as well as it can. But mine were bad. They were really bad. And then I had to be like, right, you need to up your prices and you need to start propagating more plants. And so that is what I did. I made a massive propagation station kind of shelf in my kitchen and in my room upstairs that turned into the plant room. Again, my ex, I'll put some pictures in, he made me the most incredible plant room. It had loads of shelves in there, it had loads of space to store plants, I had a full setup, like grow light setup, humidifiers, everything. It was amazing, and that really made everything so much easier. So yeah, obviously if you're going to be propagating your own plants or selling plants that you already own, then that is going to save you a lot of money, and I would honestly recommend doing it. I don't think I needed to buy as many plants in when I first started as I did. The one thing I did start doing after I had bought in my first lot is I bought in some popular ones, like for example Monstera deliciosa, that I know everybody loves. It's always really popular. And I started thinking, right, okay, everyone that comes in, I'm going to just take a little cutting, or I'm going to take a little chunk or whatever, and I'm going to start propagating that. So that kind of became quite rolling. I would get in, again, you can't buy plants in single numbers from a lot of these suppliers. So I would get in, let's say, 12 Monstera deliciosa, and I would take one cutting from each of them, propagate them, and then in 3-4 months time I'd have another small baby plant that I could then put in my shop, and then that was a much bigger profit for me. So that was definitely a good way of doing it. I also started doing the same for rarer plants kind of further down the line, when I would get in kind of more sought after, unusual plants. I would be like, right, okay, before I even put them in my shop, I'm going to make sure I propagate them, and I've got like 2 or 3 on the go and stuff like that. My philodendron melanochrysum here was actually one of the ones that was from my shop. It has ended up in my possession. I wonder how. I'm afraid to say a few of them did, but maybe that's why my shop never properly succeeded. No, I ran out of space. That is all in this other video. I'll post that below. But yes, on the note of the initial investment, someone's also said, how did you build your website? So this, as I said earlier, I was originally thinking about Etsy. I don't know why, like for some reason, and this is just me, it's a vanity thing. It's literally just a vanity thing that I had in my head. I didn't want it to be an Etsy shop. I wanted it to be www.thejunglehaven. Like that is what I wanted to do. My lockdown brain, crazy brain. So I used Wix as a supplier. I personally would not again. I will tell you why in a minute. Just my opinion. As I say, all of this is just my opinion. There's no wrong or right. This is just my experience. But I used Wix as a supplier. And the thing that I loved about that was the website was really easy to build. You could just kind of drag and drop. It was pretty much like doing something on like Microsoft Word pages, whatever people use nowadays. Pretty much like that. You could just kind of drag and drop text and images, and everything was very simple. So that was very good. However, when I started kind of trying to expand a little bit, and I was offering, when I was doing plants, pots, all that sort of stuff, what I wanted to do, one of the features, this is one of many reasons for me personally with Wix, one of the features I wanted to have on there was when people clicked on a plant, for example, they would be able to see underneath all of the pots that plant could fit in, all of the plants that would work with. And there was no possible option for that on Wix. Basically, you could have suggested items, but the suggested item might be a 5 centimeter pot for a 50 centimeter pot plant. Like, they were just random suggestions, and it frustrated me so much, because I'd put so much time and effort into doing this, and then into kind of building my website initially, and then people were saying, oh well, which pot would go with this and what would go with that, and I was like, I have to go through every single pot and tell you each time, which was annoying. So in hindsight, you might actually be able to do that as a feature now on Etsy, I don't know, but in hindsight, I think if I was starting a brand new website again, I would use Shopify. That just because I did some research into Shopify when I was having issues with my other website provider, and it looked like it was kind of really easy to use, really easy to build, but it had the options of things that Wix wasn't giving me. As I say, again, this is just me. I feel like I have to just keep clarifying that, because I feel like there's going to be some people that work at Wix that are going to just come for me and be like, no, you are wrong. Get off the internet, Claire. So yeah, my opinion, just my opinion. Right, what is the next question? Again, Website marketing, as I've already said, I used Instagram a lot. Facebook as well is brilliant. I linked my Facebook and Instagram page. They're still linked now, so everything would post to both, just because I know quite a lot of the, I guess, kind of younger, slightly younger generation are moving away from Facebook now, and they're all kind of on Instagram, TikTok, all that sort of stuff. But the older generation, who are absolutely customers, I mean, were 100% my kind of target audience, a lot of them still use Facebook, and it is just a really brilliant way of kind of reaching lots of other people and being able to link the two things. So yeah, Facebook is great. Also, if you're literally just wanting to make some sales and make some money, obviously, as I've already said, Facebook selling pages are brilliant. There's so many great planty pages out there that you can join, and you can just literally post your products on, or whatever, just kind of do private sales, and there aren't fees with that. It's obviously a little bit more risky because it's usually done via direct bank transfer or PayPal and stuff like that. So you just have to be a little bit careful. I mean, as a buyer or seller, there's a little bit of risk there that you don't get with doing it properly online, but it is definitely an option, and it's one that actually, to be honest, I use now, because even though my main shop isn't open, I still do private sales from time to time. I've still got quite a few plants in stock from when my shop was open, particularly some rare ones that I've kind of been holding on to, propagating, and hope that when the time comes that I've got enough space to be able to open my shop back up, I'll be able to be like, bam, here's all this stuff. So yeah, it is definitely worth doing. Somebody asked, what were the main problems you encountered when you started? And for this one, I have literally written down like a whole subcategory of things, because there were so many things. But top of the list, right, let's go through them. I'm gonna just stop potting up for a minute because I feel like I need my energy for this. So top of the list was to reevaluate packaging. When I first started sending things out, I didn't have a clue about how to package plants. I knew how to package cuttings just from doing it before and what had worked and what hadn't worked, but packaging plants, like big plants themselves, like some of them that I was sending out were the size of this bird of paradise, like they were big plants, and knowing how to package them in a way that they didn't get damaged was something I learned through trial and error. I mean, I had, in my first few weeks, I would say probably 3 or 4 plants come back that had been damaged, and I just kind of thought, okay, you know what, if this is happening now, then I really need to think some things through. So yeah, I actually made a video, one of my first videos I ever put up on my YouTube channel, about how to package plants for shipping. That is the most, and to this day, most effective way that I found to package plants. Again, I've seen lots of other companies do it differently. Like I got my House of Kojo order recently, and they did things really differently, and all of the plants are in perfect condition. So there's a few different ways you could do it, but it really made me think, okay, right, I've got to change the thing quickly. So that was number one thing that went a bit wrong at first. Couriers, this is a fun one. Not gonna name and shame, but I think you kind of have to just try and test some couriers without, like, don't send out like a £500 order with a courier that you're not confident with, because yes, there's always going to be accidents, but the one thing that you do have to kind of take into account is that basically every courier here in the UK will not cover perishables, and plants fall under that category. So for example, if you send out a plant that costs £200 and a pot that costs £5, if the pot breaks and smashes, you can claim back on that pot. But if something happens to the plant, if the parcel is jumped on and that plant is squished, you can't really claim back for the plant. They're very, very sneaky about that. So it's important to find a courier that is reliable and is safe with their parcels. And I started with, again, I'm not going to name names, I started with one courier that was the cheapest. And I'd read some decent reviews that had kind of a mix of both, and I was like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna give this one a go. And it didn't go well. I mean, a few orders were delayed or missing for a few days, which obviously when you're sending out plants, if the temperature drops, for example, the plants can be damaged. So that wasn't good to start with. And yeah, there were a few that honestly, one of the parcels looked like it had been used as a football. It was just ridiculous, and I had packaged it what I thought was so well, and it was just smashed to bits. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions about anything, name-wise, feel free to ping me a message on Instagram and I can be a little bit less discreet, but I feel like just for the purpose of this, I don't want to kind of name and shame. Right, I am going to try and do this at the same time. I've got some Venus flytrap seeds. They're absolutely tiny. I don't know if you can see them. You might be able to see better on that camera, if you can see. And I'm going to stick a few in one of my propagation boxes that's got a bit of space, and then the others I'm going to just pot in some soil and cover with cling film and see how it goes. Never done this before, so yes. Yeah, another issue that I had was propagation failures. So again, if you are planning on just purely propagating stock or planting stock and not actually getting anything in from an external supplier, I just found that, and I mean, it's so obvious again, but like not every propagation is going to be successful. You're not always going to have a 100% success rate. So if you think, right, I've got 20 monsteras propagating, in 5 weeks time I'll be able to list 20 in stock, it doesn't always work like that, and it can mean that what you're able to offer kind of goes down. So that was something I didn't really think about and should have thought about more. It also just, I mean, in terms of when you do propagate, making sure that everything is stable and the environment is offers the best potential for successful propagation. Again, so obvious, but is very, very important. Oh, I feel like I'm just going to lose these seeds when they come out. Oh, okay, I have two. I have two here. Come out. The rest of the stuff in here, the propagation box, is going to be taken out in the next, I'm just going to have to drop it in the next week or so, I would say. So I think it's probably pretty safe to just pop them in here. Oh God, I don't know where though. Right, problems. Okay, on that note, the propagation note as well. So I said earlier that I propagated rare plants to basically keep back in stock. Like, for example, I managed to get hold of some variegated monsteras, which, I mean, at the time they're still rare, but you know what I mean? They were kind of really, really sought after, and I was trying for such a long time to get hold of some, and I finally managed to get some, and a few of them sold as full plants, which was great, but I needed to charge a certain amount in order to break even and make a little bit of profit on them. So what I thought is, I was like, I'll propagate some of them and then I'll have an endless supply of variegated monsteras, and oh my goodness, again, I'm going to be so rich. And obviously when there's a demand for something and they are propagatable, the demand is going to go down. So I've still got quite a lot of them actually, but I chopped a load of them up. I decided to propagate them and I was like, cool, I'll be able to sell them for 50, 60 quid a cutting, blah, 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 blah. And then obviously as the demand's gone up, you can now, I mean, I've seen cuttings going for kind of 30, 40 quid. Oh, is that seed? 30, 40 quid, which is absolutely crazy. And so that is another thing to take into consideration if you're investing in expensive stock that you believe you can make more money off. Do it pretty quickly. Do it pretty quickly before the demand goes up and everybody's doing it. The next problem that I definitely encountered was creating a stable environment for so many plants. I think at one point I had about 300 plants and propagations in stock, and obviously all of them had slightly different care requirements. So it was really, really hard at times to make sure that all of them were getting exactly what they needed. Because again, sometimes you might have something in stock for 3 weeks. Sometimes if it doesn't sell, it might be 3 months, like you just don't know. And along with that, obviously, I always used to isolate plants when they first came in just to make sure that there were no pests or anything like that. So you've got to, in the meantime, while you're pest checking them, have kind of a separate space to be able to do that and make sure that everything's fine. So, and I wasn't like, the place I was living wasn't huge. Like it had this spare room kind of like, well, I mean, it never had a bed in it or anything like that. It was literally just an empty room, and that became plant room. And then the rest of the house, sections of the house became like isolation station and stuff like that. So that was difficult. I mean, I got kind of an industrial size humidifier, which is just brilliant. It's so good. I still use it now for all my plants. And then I had like loads of other little humidifiers dotted around the house. Plants that didn't like humidity, I'd make sure, like succulents, cacti, stuff like that, I would make sure they were in a completely separate area. Lighting requirements, I had a ton of grow lights. I've got some pictures that, I mean, I might have put them in this video anyway, but I'll pop some more pictures in so you can kind of see my setup. But yeah, that was, it was a little bit of a challenge at times. Also, in regards to pest checking, obviously, if you have a plant with pests, it's like you need to just, I mean, I know you should always isolate plants, but I kind of treated my shop plants very differently from how I treated my personal collection, because obviously this was my job, this was kind of my livelihood at that time. If like I find pests in my personal collection, obviously I'll be like, oh God, got to isolate this plant, I'll pest treat it later. With this, I mean, I had to make sure, like really make sure that things weren't getting pests. And as I say, like I think I had thrips on one of the plants once, and luckily it never ever spread, but I would just have to make sure that there were like pest preventative measures in place all the time. I would check them. I tried to do it every single day, to be honest, and that took absolutely ages. I would try to do it every single day. I would spray them all with kind of a diluted neem oil about once every week and a half or something like that, which again, I wouldn't do with my normal plants. Like I don't personally think it's good for them to constantly have neem oil on them, but it is one of the best known pest preventatives. So that was also what I was doing pretty much constantly. It was a challenge keeping them all alive and growing. And as I just said, some of them would be in my care for months and months and months, because I would sometimes think, oh, people are really going to love this sort of plant, I'll propagate this or I'll get this in. And then actually either the hype would die down and everyone was like, nope, not interested anymore, or the ones that I thought would do really well just didn't do well. So I was like, ah, cool, now I'm left with 24 crotons, and I would just have to make sure that they were all kept happy and healthy and all that sort of stuff until the time came that they sold. And then also, again, probably very obvious, having sales when you've got a shop is a really good way to get eyes on your shop and get rid of a load of stuff that you are trying to get rid of, hence the 24 crotons. I had a sale and I think I did about 20% off on them and maybe another type of plant, I can't remember, but that would get eyes on my website, that would get people over there and make them think, okay, cool, right, let's grab a few of those cheap things, and they've also got this, and then encourage them to buy other stuff as well. The other thing that I didn't say about starting the plant shop during lockdown, because I think a lot of people will very easily, here it is. A lot of people will very easily kind of look at that and be like, yeah, well, you had all the time in the world, it was so much easier then. And yes, I think, I'm not gonna say that's not the case. Like, I think to a certain extent, it definitely was a blessing in disguise having that time, even though it was under bad circumstances. It was a blessing to have that time, because I mean, it's time that I'll never hopefully get again in the best possible way. But the thing with that is that when you open a plant shop during lockdown and you have all eyes on that, the expectations firstly are fairly high if you've given it a lot of hype, which I definitely had. The expectations are high, and also people will lose interest fairly quickly. Like, the thing that I found was when I opened my shop, my first couple of weeks of sales were so good. I was honestly over the moon with my sales in the first few weeks, and I was like, oh my God, if it keeps going like this, it's going to be absolutely amazing. And then the world kind of opened up again. Then we came out of lockdown, and all of a sudden everybody was able to go back to the real shops. They were able to go out and see their friends and go to plant shops, and that's what everybody would prefer to be doing anyway. So I noticed my sales go from like 15, 20, 30 a day to sometimes none. I had days where I had absolutely no sales, and it really terrified me. So yeah, that was just, my experience with that. I don't really know how I got onto that then. What was the next question? We're still on my subcategories of problems. The next one. Also, I'm really sorry if this is ridiculously waffly. I thought I was being really organised with writing down all your questions and like my subcategories and everything, but I'm hearing myself say stuff and I'm like, pretty sure I've already said that, or I just go on tangents. I find it really hard to just stick to one question. So if you're still watching and if you're finding this useful, I'm really glad. But yes, my next one was making it clear to customers that all plants are different. This is where I had a few tricky ones from time to time, and I'm like, yeah, there's no blame here. I obviously didn't make it clear enough. Like, I probably didn't make it clear enough that all plants are going to be different. Like, obviously they're living things, they're not all going to be as perfect as others. For example, I'll grab it and show you actually. My euphorbia over here, oh, hang on. My euphorbia, this one here, this was one from the shop that I sent out, and it got sent back to me because the picture that I used, I will put a picture in of the picture that I used for the website. This one didn't kind of branch out as much as the others, and it wasn't as kind of cactus-like compared to the others. And I had put very clearly on there that all plants are different. They're all going to vary slightly in shape and size, but this is the type of plant. This is kind of a standard of what it will probably look along the lines of. And I sent that one out, and I had a very angry email back from, I'm sure, a very lovely woman, saying that this was not the plant she ordered. It looked nothing like the type of plant on the website, and that she'd been ripped off, and so she sent it back and I gave her a refund. But that is just really something to bear in mind. You have to make it very, very clear to people that they're not going to get the exact plant pictured. I mean, some people might choose to do that. They might choose to actually sell the exact plant in the picture, but again, that's a lot more work. That's a lot more work. If you're able to do that, then fantastic. But for me, I was not. Oh my God, look at these roots. These are my variegated string of pearls cuttings, and these roots, oh, are so fragile, but so great. Come on, they're all tangled. Yeah, this was another thing, another problem that I encountered. And I'm sure, again, this doesn't just go for plant businesses. I'm sure this goes for lots and lots and lots of other businesses as well. But people trying to send things back weeks or months after they bought it. And again, you just have to make it very, very clear that, like, you can't do that. You really can't do that. Like, for example, I would send out, let's say, a live aloe vera, and then 4 weeks later, I would get an email from someone saying, my aloe vera has just died. It's been 4 weeks. This product can't have been well kept or whatever, and I would have cared for it for the last 6 months. And probably, I'm not saying always, because sometimes things can go wrong, like from both ends, but it would look maybe overwatered, or something had happened to it that people would then expect their money back for. And that's the time where I found that quite difficult. You've got to kind of put your foot down a little bit. And that's something that, I mean, in that sense, I'm really not built for business, because I found that really difficult to do, because I always just wanted to be like, oh, it's okay, I'll send you another one. But yeah, you do just have to be a little bit kind of strict with yourself on that, because otherwise people, especially if they know they can do it once, will keep doing it. So that is something that I learned. What's the next question? How did you find suppliers? So again, like, this is a question that I Googled myself many, many, many times when I was first starting my shop. Finding good suppliers can be really, really difficult. As I say, the ones, and I'm sure also it's been about 8 months now since I had my shop open. Things could have completely changed, and I know, like, Brexit and stuff like that has almost certainly affected stuff. But for me, all of the suppliers I successfully worked with were based in Holland. I tried quite a few, and I was very lucky, actually. I didn't have any that were bad per se, but some suppliers that I worked with, again, not naming any names at all, but the plants would arrive in better condition than others, or the kind of consistency was not great. Like, you might have some incredible alocasias come in that looked in perfect condition, and then you'd have a load of philodendrons come in that looked like they hadn't been watered in about 8 weeks. So it was just about finding, for me, something that I felt was kind of consistent. The supplier that I ended up working with, and am still kind of with, and I hope to kind of continue working with as and when my shop is open again. But they were brilliant because they gave you a rep, like a representative for the company, and they would kind of walk you through the process of everything, and they were really helpful. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, a Google search can help you find some suppliers, and then it's just about trial and error at the end of the day. as I say, like a lot of suppliers, unless you can get UK ones that I'm not aware of or I didn't try working with, they're going to make you buy stuff in bulk. And what I tried to do the first few times I ordered was just get a really diverse range of stuff, kind of some plants that were super easy to care for, some that were really prone to pests or not so easy to care for and stuff like that, and just kind of figure out, okay, right, I'm really happy with the quality of all of these things. Have they bought these things in and are they reselling them again, for example, or have these all been grown by them? It was just lots to think about. But yeah, as I say, there's kind of there's a bit of a reason why people that have had been in kind of the planty industry don't preach about their suppliers, because good ones are really, really hard to find. And just because one was right for me or right for someone else doesn't mean they're going to be right for everybody. Like, for example, the supplier that I first went with had been working with one of my friends for years and years and years and years and years. Like, she'd been working very close with her and she raved about this supplier and she was like, they're brilliant, their prices are great. And I tried them and I had a really, really bad experience. And the first time I kind of thought, right, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And then it happens again. And I was like, right, okay, they're working really well for you, but they're not working for me. So don't let that put you off. I think you just need to kind of, try it and see what works for you. And yeah, that's my advice on that. Someone said, how many plants did you stock? Again, it really, really varied. I think, as I said earlier, the most I ever had in one go was around about 300, and that wasn't just big plants. That was like little propagations, seedlings, all that sort of stuff that I was growing. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot to keep on top of. Someone said, how did you prevent pests? I've already said that question. Oh. Another question is, how much time did it take up? It took a lot of time. And actually, the packing up orders and doing planty bits probably took the least amount of time, I would say. I'm a very early riser anyway. I usually wake up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. I don't know why, my brain's just weird. But I would be up from 4:30 every morning, and I would probably be working on the days, because obviously I was still doing a bit of other work as well, working on shop stuff until easily 10 o'clock at night. Like, that might have been packing orders, that might have been prepping. Like, I did care packs for all my orders with like specifications about what each plant likes and doesn't like and all that sort of stuff. Doing that took its time, yes, but also the marketing, the making sure that people were still aware of you, aware of your presence as a brand. That is the thing that took such a long time. And I've never particularly been a very active social media person anyway. Like, if any of you follow me on Instagram, you'll probably see that I have months where I don't post at all. And this is on Jungle Instagram as well. This is the one that really I should be trying to keep a little bit more up to date, but I fall out of love with it so easily. And you need to remind yourself that when you're running a business, it's not about you falling out of it. It's about the fact that if you do fall out of love with social media and you don't want to post for a month, then cool, but you might not have any sales at all that month unless you have loads of great reviews go up and people are suddenly more aware of you, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So yeah, it was very, very time consuming, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I mean, I'm saying it like that because that kind of leads me on to my next point of, when you treat it like a job. Like, I went into this because I loved plants so much and I wanted an excuse to be able to be a part of bringing plants into people's lives and do as much planty stuff with my days as I possibly can and make some money out of it. With anything, as soon as you start treating it like a job, from time to time, it's really going to feel like a job. Like, I don't know, like I've spoken before about like burnout with plants, and some days where you're feeling really low and you maybe just don't have the energy to go and spend time with your plants. You kind of, when you're trying to do it as a business, you kind of have to say to yourself, right, the thing that I love has really become a chore today. Like, I maybe haven't loved it very much today. My heart hasn't been in it. And that's one thing, actually, I've got to say, since stopping my shop and actually since starting YouTube, I have really kind of rediscovered the love for, because anytime I'm doing like even just stuff like this, I'm sat here and I'm like, this is really awesome that I'm kind of chatting to you guys and I'm making a little video about it, but I'm also getting stuff done. Whereas if this was shop, I would be running around like a mad thing, writing out notes and ticking orders off and making sure that everything was in the right place and doing the right thing. And although that's great, and I'm not saying I didn't love that, because I absolutely did, it's very nice to be able to actually allow some time for yourself to connect to it all instead of doing it all for other people. And for me, that is what plant care started as. Like I started loving plants because of what they kind of gave to me, what I felt, like I said at the beginning of this video, like it felt very therapeutic, it felt lovely and in my own time and all that sort of stuff. And that very much goes, that can go from time to time when you are having to make yourself do it every single day as a job. That is just something to be aware of, because although, yes, I think I was aware of that when I started, I was also very in my own head of, oh, but it's going to be great. Like, I'll just be able to spend my evenings packing up orders. And I really did live in a dream world for a while. And maybe for some people, that is what it's like. Like, maybe some people are able to just do that. But often for me, when I'd been up since 4:30 in the morning, working absolutely flat out, taking the dog out for a walk, coming back, making sure everything was done around the house, cooking dinner, like all of the kind of daily things that you have to do. And then it would get to 9-10 o'clock at night and I'd think, oh my God, I've got 20 orders going out tomorrow. Each order has 6 plants and I've got like, it could be exhausting. It could be absolutely exhausting. So yeah, that is, I don't mean that to be particularly negative. I think that's just kind of realistic. That was just, as I say, how, that one hasn't rooted, I'm going to just plant this in, how I found it, and I think what I would now say about it. So the last question that I've written down, I feel like, I keep saying this, I feel like I haven't been very thorough with these, but it's often kind of hard to tell, as I say, when I'm multitasking, what is coming across clearly and what is not. But the last question is, what are my chances of being successful with it if I was to start now? I'm not, like, I saw this question and I thought about not even answering it, but I'm definitely not. I think if it's something you're passionate about and if you want to give it a go, give it a go. Like, you stand as good a chance as anybody else, so long as you're willing to put in the time and match your competitors. Like, well, not even match your competitors. Look at what's doing well, learn from it, and work out how you can offer something different. I'm not going to say do something better, offer something different. That's what I really did try to do when my shop was open. And it was funny, actually. And actually, you know what? I'm going to carry this video on. I'm not going to end it yet because I've still got stuff to do and I'm just going to keep chatting. If any, like, we're going to still be talking shop stuff, but this is just kind of more general. Those are the questions pretty much done. What was I going to say? So yeah, I think if you're thinking about starting doing it now, just do your research. I mean, the whole thing, I almost don't want to kind of bang on about it in this video because I know it's the thing that everyone always says, but like, establish your target audience and all that sort of stuff. It really is important, because if you look at the people that are buying from your competitors' shops, then they are your potential customers as well. And I'm not saying copy or mimic anything that any other brand is doing, but finding a way to make yours unique and the values of your brand as well. Like, for example, like with mine, I'm aware that shipping plants out is not the most eco-friendly thing in the world. So I started working with an amazing company called One Tree Planted, so that every time I sent out an order, a tree would be planted for that order. And that's something that, I mean, it's a very, very small give back, but it kind of makes people feel a little bit better about shopping with you, because they know that it's not just all about, it's about people's values, isn't it? It's about what people find important. And I think a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, when people have an interest in nature, in houseplants and indoor gardening, they're also going to have a focus on the environment and nature outside of their houses as well. So that was something that felt like a good thing to do for me. But yeah, I'd say just There's lots of things that I would have done differently that I've spoken about in this video, but I would say probably the main things would be making sure that your brand doesn't become purely a brand. Like, make sure you keep that connection with people. Like, as I said, like when I was doing my shop, I started doing YouTube as a way of essentially, YouTube started as a way of me marketing my shop. I thought, okay, I've done Instagram, I've done Facebook. How can I get more sales? Maybe I'll jump on YouTube. And my God, honestly, like actually, maybe I might put a clip in, because my first YouTube video I made, I was so nervous.
Hello everyone, no, be quiet. Hello. Yoli.
I hadn't really put myself out there. I was sat behind a screen pretty much doing everything, or sat packing orders in my house. Like it was a very, very scary thing to do. But actually, as soon as I started doing it and pushing myself in that way, as I've already said, I kind of rediscovered my love of plants and talking about plants, and that aspect of something that, although it's not shop, I still kind of consider business. Like, I'm really trying to treat YouTube as like more of a job nowadays, because I mean, not that it feels like a job, I absolutely love it, but I'm trying to think about how I can expand my brand, and although my shop's not open, create stuff that is lovely and that I enjoy doing, and that doesn't feel as limiting, if that makes sense. Does that make sense at all? I don't know if it does. I think the thing you've really got to work out as well, if you're thinking about starting a shop, is whether or not you're kind of for now going to do it to be like a little side hustle, or if you're looking to actually turn it into something full time. And again, I'm sure this goes with absolutely any business at all, but you do, like, if it's just kind of something on the side, I would say take your time with it more. Don't rush, really. And in fact, you know what, if I could go back and do things differently, I wouldn't launch right in and do like poof jungle straight away. I would have taken my time a little bit more. I wouldn't have chucked £400 into my first stock order kind of investment thing. I would have slowly, kind of gradually built things up and kind of got more of a vibe of it, instead of just rushing, because it's a big risk. It's a really, really big risk, and that risk doesn't always pay off. And although in some aspects I think it did for me and my shop, like I think on the whole I'm pretty happy with how everything went. Even when I had to kind of decide to stop for a while, I was happy with how things were going. But I think I could have learnt a lot of the things that I have kind of spoken about in this video, of things I could have done differently. I think a lot of those were kind of there in front of me a lot sooner, and I didn't properly learn those lessons because I was just too eager to get in there and make it straight away. So yeah, I would say actually that's really important. That's really, really important. And if you're like me, you might not listen and you might just run to it anyway. But if I could go back and I could do that again, that's 100% something I would do differently. I'm trying to think about other areas that I haven't covered. I'm sure there's lots, and I'm sure that there's some that when I watch this back, I'll be like, oh, I should have gone into more depth on that or this or anything like that. I think, and this is again probably very obvious, knowing your product is very, very, very important. I've seen a lot of places either on Facebook or Etsy, or kind of quite established businesses that don't seem to kind of have much care over what it is that they do. And I think that's something that's 100% going to separate one brand from another, because so much of it comes from word of mouth. That is something that I didn't realize when I was doing all of my marketing, my social media marketing, all that sort of stuff. And then I would have orders coming through being like, oh, so-and-so bought a plant from you and she told me and I'm her daughter, da, 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 da. And I was like, wow, if you do things right, word of mouth can be the biggest marketer there is. So yeah, making sure that you know all of your, in this case, plants really, really well. You know your product, you know what they like, what they don't like. If somebody approaches you and says, I'm having issues because of this, you can kind of, for me, part of my kind of customer service would be, I offered like a free plant doctor service. Not that I'm a botanist or anything like that, but I would do my research. I would have looked after that plant myself, and I would be able to kind of advise them what might work, what might not work, like all that sort of stuff. And for me, I felt like that was something that maybe separated me a little bit. I'm sure there's other companies doing it as well, but that kind of faith that you have in knowing what you are, knowing the things that you are giving to people, and being able to help them if they come back to you, because obviously selling something that's alive, like a living plant, it comes with risks, not just the courier risks, it comes with a lot of risks, because product consistency is never going to be identical. You're never going to have 20 plants that all look the same, that all, I mean, different types of plant that all respond to the same things, that all like the same things. Some people might think, oh, you know what, I've got 20 snake plants and all of them are still alive, so I'll get 20 calatheas. And obviously care needs very, very different, and it could, if people don't know, people don't do their research, could reflect badly on you as a shop, because they will assume that they haven't bought a good product, if that makes sense. So yeah. Also, sorry, this is my little varicosum that I showed you. When did I show this to you? I think my Repot and Chat a couple of months ago, I showed you this little one that was in the test tube, and it had literally just been like a little snap off my other one that was completely accidental. And yeah, it's now got 2 teeny tiny leaves, and it's got a third one on the way. I'm wondering if I should just keep going. One more thing I definitely want to do. You know what? I'll give you a plant update while I'm here as well. This is quite exciting. So again, the Repot and Chat video that I did, the same one where I showed you that, I planted my anthurium seeds, and I'm just going to give you, I'm going to make a full video on this, but I'm just going to give you a little sneak peek of my Clarinervium hybrid. Look at that. It's a proper little plant now. I am so proud of this one. The other ones are still going as well. I will do an update soon, but yes, that is that one. Oh dear, I really set myself a challenge today. I wanted to pot up my Syngonium albos, I wanted to pot up my Variegated Monstera. I think I might just turn the rest of this video into just kind of a general Repot and Chat, to be honest, because I want to get through it. I think I'll just leave the camera rolling, and if anyone's got any questions shop-wise, if I think of anything as I go, I will say. But I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in this video. I'm not sure now, I'm doubting myself. But yeah, you know what, I will, as I say, I spoke about it in my my plant chores video quite recently, about why I stopped my shop. I was going to just refer you to that video, but I may as well talk about it now. So basically, as I have already said, so some of you might have already seen this in that video, me and my lovely ex, who is still one of my best friends, who we were together when Junglehaven started, he really, bless him, helped me out so much. He was literally like my business mentor. He was fantastic. We were living together at the time, and we were living in a house, and we had a lot more space to be able to do things. I mean, it wasn't huge, don't get me wrong, but like I said, we had a spare room that he was able to turn into a plant room for me, which was just incredible. And I know not everybody has that luxury, so we were very lucky to have that. And then, oh wow, look at that root. This is one that I should have potted up a very long time ago. You can see it's starting to yellow, but I'm going to pot it up and see how it goes. But yeah, then when me and him realised that things weren't quite working between us, and we separated, I temporarily moved back home, which is where I am now. My lovely, amazing mum has just let me bring all of my plants, most of my plants, back with me. So I'm so lucky for that. And also me and him are still best friends. So all is good there. But long story short, I just did not have the space to be able to do my shop anymore. I moved back during a pandemic. Things weren't easy anyway. And as I say, bless my mum letting me bring all of these plants back as it is, let alone trying to also run my shop from here as well. The first few months I did try, and my houseplant tour video, the first one that I did, that was my new setup here in my mum's conservatory, and she very kindly let me give it a go, but it wasn't working because, as I say, and this is another thing to say actually about space and storage, it's not just the space for plants that you have to take into consideration, it's all of those packing materials that, as I say, you do really have to buy in bulk. Like if you want to be making profits, it doesn't work out cheaply to just be buying like 10 boxes at a time, like one packet of packing fill or whatever it is you're using. I would buy probably 50, 60 big boxes at one time, and some of them, if they're like triple walled, would be about that thick each, meaning that they were bigger than me, with these huge bags of eco-fill and eco bubble wrap and all of the stuff that I was using. And my God, it takes up so much room. It really, really, really does. I tried keeping it all in my plant room when I was back at my old place, and a lot of it started to, like the boxes started to go moldy just because the humidity in that room was so high. So there's lots of things to think about in that aspect. But yeah, sorry, kind of diverted there. My feeling with that when I moved back here was just that I don't want to cut corners. When I'm going to do my shop, I want to be able to do it in the way that I was doing where I was living before, where I had the space to be able to, for example, like have a plant room that was specifically for that, where I could keep conditions exactly how they needed to be. I had like my isolation space if I needed to isolate anything. All of the conditions were within my control, and they're not so much here. Luckily, my mum also loves plants, so she doesn't mind them all being here. But I think if I was to start running 6 industrial humidifiers and doing my watering and packing up orders in the middle of the room, she probably wouldn't be that happy. So yeah, that is why I am not doing my shop anymore. But as I say, like I have totally fallen in love with doing YouTube, which is something I never ever thought that I would be doing. It has been totally random, and again, I found it through doing my shop, but it's, yeah, I love it so much, and I'm speaking to so many lovely people through doing what I'm now doing with YouTube. And yeah, it's just something that I have absolutely no regrets on, and I'm so excited to continue. So I'm hoping that when I'm able to move, which fingers crossed will be soon, not that I don't love you, Mum, but hopefully it'll be soon. I am hoping that I will be able to get my shop back up and running again. Maybe not to the same all-out standard that I was doing it before, but as I said, I think if I was to be able to go back, I would take a step back and kind of go in a little bit more gradually and not make things kind of out of control and any more hectic than they need to be. So I'm just going to put that there for 1 minute because I'm running out of space. Just need to get a pot. But yes, I would do things a little bit slower paced, I think. So that's my goal. That's what I'm going to aim to do with it all. But for now, as I say, like I'm just loving doing this. And the other thing that I've got so interested in since I've started doing YouTube is like kind of more the kind of anatomy side and the individual care needs of plants and stuff like that, which is something that I was fascinated with before. But I know there's certain areas that I've been wrongly educated on. I've learned a lot of information from social media, from stuff like that. And I know that there's some sources that aren't always correct. I'm not saying I will always get it right as well. I know that I won't, but it's really made me think that maybe at some point I would love to go and do like a botany course or something like that, and really, hang on, I'm just gonna do this and then I will. Yeah, it's really just spiked my interest in different areas that I would never have considered before. And as I say, this is why, like, I think this whole lockdown situation, I mean, for me, like all of what I'm doing now planty wise has been born out of the lockdown. And I don't mean that to sound, because I also did a hell of a lot of sitting around, as I say, watching TV, drinking lots of alcohol and not really doing much else and feeling very low. I think I'm just very lucky that this happened when it did for me. I think it was an absolute saving grace, and it gave me a focus that I really needed. But also on that note, I don't think anybody at all should feel bad if they didn't have a productive lockdown. Like, as I say, like at the beginning, I would watch all my friends doing these like crazy, amazing things and like starting up like all these cool things that they'd always wanted to do. And I was like, you know what, like I'm not doing any of that. I'm doing nothing. And I got in a very, very bad way about it for a while. So everything just happens when it needs to happen for people. And I'm not, mine just, I don't know. I'm not even saying like, oh yes, it was meant to happen. It happened, blah, 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 blah. No, it just, I think was a bit of coincidence. It kind of just happened at the right time, but also at the right time, but the wrong time, because maybe this is meant to happen 10 years down the line when I did have loads of space and I could do things right from the start. Who knows? But it is what it is. And as I say, I'm just really thankful for what it's given me in regards to doing this now and stuff like that. It's just such a lovely outlet for me. It's an excuse to be able to spend time with my plants without beating myself up for like feeling like I'm wasting time. I don't know if any of you ever get that. Like there'll be days where I kind of have to force myself to go and look after my plants because I'm like, oh God, there's so much to do, like come on. And then I'll start it and I'll be like, okay, right, on we go. And then there's other days where all I will want to do is just have a planty day and repot and propagate and just check on my propagation boxes and just do stuff like that all day. And then I often feel like, oh God, no, but Claire, you've got so much to do. That's a luxury, da 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 da. And when I'm doing YouTube, I'm like, I can do all that stuff and I can spend as long as I want doing it because I can just put it on camera. So that is the best thing ever for me, to be honest. So yeah, right. I'm out of soil. I'm going to try and just get that last little bit in the pot. Ooh. This is my mum's salad bowl. She keeps telling me off for using it, but I need to get a new bowl. So sorry, mum. Right. I'm out of soil. So I think I'm going to end this video here. I could go on. I have got more that I could do, but I think maybe I'll save those for another video. I really hope that this was useful. I am praying that it won't be too nonsensey waffly when I watch it back, but if it was, I hope you enjoyed it anyway. I just totally lost my mind. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.